From Yorkshire to Clydebridge via Peterlee and a change of identity en route. What a journey this locomotive has been on. Hello everybody and welcome along to the February 2026 update from Clydebridge station. My goodness, is it February already? And this is one of the two new arrivals on the layout in February. Now the second one will be reviewed in the March update, although please stay tuned right to the end because you'll get your second, albeit rather short dose of locomotive royalty. This is 47712 Lady Diana Spencer carrying Parcels Red livery as she wore from 1991. And it's a Bachmann loco, but a full story on that later on in the programme. In this month's update, we're going to be installing some scale model scenery drains. We'll be using a rust pen to try and simulate rusty track. I'll be showing you how to do that. I'll be installing an advertising hoarding on the bus garage to finish that off. And I'll show you the way I'm going to build the replacement lights for above the billboards on opposite platform number 1. So quite a few things to cover in this month's programme. I may not get everything finished obviously, but we'll certainly be making a start. Now if you've got any comments, queries or suggestions about what you're going to see or about anything to do with the layout in general, please leave them in the comments box below. And if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell icon so you can be notified of when new videos appear on this YouTube channel. There's at least one per calendar month. And also, I'll be giving some shout outs to some layouts and other people at the end of the programme. They're about a small amount. Anyway, if you're all ready, all aboard, let's go. A couple of months back, I asked you for some thoughts on options I had for here to try and sort this out because that's quite tight. I think I've now got the solution. You can actually see it here. This is what my plan is. This curve here would only go up to about here. I would then put up that point in about here, so the one train could go around like that, and the other track would come up to here. The second point, which would be this one, would then sit about here. That would then allow a curve to come into here, so the train would have a gentle curve back into here. This building would be coming up, and this would allow this curve to extend further round. What it would then mean is that this track could, in theory, come back this way a bit with a kink and then meet the track up here. Now it's going to take a bit of more planning to actually get this sorted out, because I could actually move the points if I wanted to down to here and then have the something more akin to that. So I've got various options open, but doing this, even having the point back here, there's various options I say open to me, but the most important thing I can say is that this point is going to be used in here, and what it will then do, as I say, it will allow a wider gap between here, and it might also then potentially do away with this awkward arrangement and instead have another standard width platform along here with a full end ramp. I've actually got the full end ramp already, and then this would not look how it is. This would then be straighter. This curved point, which hasn't really worked at all well, would come out. And I mean, if I even put, say, the point here, there we go. Let's imagine we had the point, that point, which is the exact same as that. Let's imagine we had that one there. That would then provide a sweeping curve round into here, and would have that second point providing a curve round to here. There's all sorts of options open to me. But there is one thing that has to be done before I even can think about doing the track work, and that is this vegetation has all got to come up. So that's a job over the next few months, is to start taking up all the sold vegetation, and we'll work at it as I go. Now, I have got a replacement fence from Scale Model Scenery that will go in here. That will get done. But as I say, I now know the actual layout that I'm wanting for the point. So this point would be retained, and this spare point, which I bought in by mistake out of Skinny Hobbies. Turns out it's not a mistake after all. Would then, and it would eliminate this curved point, and by having the point there, it would allow, as I say, a much gentler curve in to here, and allow this to go and get fully replaced. But all this vegetation and other stuff has to come up first, and there's lots of it to actually be done, you know. Another thing I'll have to be mindful of are these dropper wires, where they'll actually end up going. Now, I do have a section of flexi-track that I bought for putting in another build of the storage units down below. I can always actually use that temporarily. Well, say temporarily, I can always use that to help with the track alterations here, and then I could then get another section for the storage units. But that is what my plan is now. I think we've got the solution, but it's going to have to wait until after the vegetation is all taken up here. And also, one other thing as well is I will order some more lampposts from PD Marsh Models to help get that right. Either this year or probably more likely next year, this signal box is going to get replaced with a brand new style signal box, a scratch build one, based upon the one that Walton-on-Trent is using on his layout, which is based upon Norton Bridge. I'll have to make mine a little bit smaller, and I know Woodhill Park has actually done one himself, so I'll watch his video because he scratch built one. I'll scratch build mine, but that's well into the future. No, we're not going on the Waterloo and City line of London Underground. No, we're actually going on the to do some trackside drainage. This is a Scale Model Scenery kit, Lima X-Ray 064 Oscar Oscar, and what you get in these kits is 12 covers, and you get 2 large circular drainage points and 10 rectangular ones. The circular ones are inspection chambers, and you've got 10 rectangular inspection chambers with manhole covers. They're going to get put down at various places on the layout through time. However, I'm going to actually start off by installing one just down around about, I don't know if my finger can, but it'll be along this section somewhere. I'm going to put one in, and I'm going to put one later on, but not yet, in between the roads for platforms 1 and platforms 2 and 3. I'm going to wait and install that at a later date because I want to get the signals put in there, and I'll get them from West Wagon Works at Model Rail Scotland, all being well. Another thing as well is that once the track work is done at platform 6 and the new wall is ready to go in, I'll actually be putting one in there as well. So there's quite a few things, quite a few places that these can be put. Now, I'll do the work off camera with this first one because there's quite a bit to it. But you get one of these, and I'm going to put it into one of the rectangular inspection chambers. The inspection chamber I'll spray grey first of all, and then I'll go and install it where I would like it to be installed. The other thing to point out with these as well is put them in before you ballast. It's a lesson I learnt a long time ago with scenery. But I will be putting in, I think one will do at the moment for one of these. I'm going to say these are the bigger ones, and they'll go elsewhere on the layout. To paint them, you could either paint the inspection chambers using a brush or grey primer aerosol. The lids, a rust colour effect would be ideal for them, or you can actually paint them black or even red. When the new council houses were built just down the street from me in the early 1980s, one of the manhole covers was like these, but was actually painted red. Of course, the red's worn out through time, over 40 years. And then just glue it together using laser cut kit glue. So that's what I'm going to do there with that first one. You just need a craft knife to take them out. All that will be done off camera. That's one of them now in position. The lid was stuck onto the concrete base with Yoo-hoo glue, and then the whole thing was stuck onto the layout with Yoo-hoo glue. The lid has been coloured using a rusty rail pen. More about that in a couple of minutes. I'm going to be putting another one up here because the stand pipes for filling up the carriages, water tanks and the locomotive water tanks would then be in line with that. So that's what I'll do off camera. And I'm going to put a third one over at just beyond platform 6. I've got an idea for it. As already mentioned, you can paint the lids in red, black, but I've used a rusty rail pen. I'll get on and get the other two done. The base was sprayed with grey aerosol, and as usual I had goggles and a mask on when using the aerosol, even though I was working outside. So should you. And also please remember, if you're using aerosols inside or out, never smoke or vape. Well, I can't go and put Clydebride's hit tune The Lady in Red on. I'd get a copyright strike if I'd done that. But I can actually safely say I have The Lady in Red here. And this is 47712, Lady Diana Spencer, which you saw at the top of the programme. The footage that you saw in the first couple of minutes of this programme was taken at Grim End, which is an exhibition layout owned and operated by Craig Mason, more famous for being the owner and operator of a home-based layout, New Durham Junction. And it was Craig that converted this from 47474 for me. It's very unusual, and this time we're going to be able to show you a before and after, because I actually have 47474. More about that shortly. I won't go into the full history of 47712, but I will tell you that when it became 47712, it was the 12th and final conversion to 47/7 of the initial order that was placed by the Scottish Region for the upgrading of the Glasgow to Edinburgh and Glasgow to Aberdeen services to push-pull operation. And she, like the other 11, are easily identifiable by the jumper cables on the front. Out of sight on the other side would be the white air pipes that assisted with the BRL push-pull system. And another 4 locomotives were converted in 1985 to allow expansion of the Edinburgh to Aberdeen services as part of the push-pull system. She was named by Sir Peter Parker at Glasgow Queen Street Station in 1981, the very same year that she married Prince Charles, now King Charles III. And the name reflects that wedding, as it were. She carried large logo blue, one of just 2 47/7s to do so, for her naming ceremony, and she remained in those colours till roughly 1985 or mid-1985, when she was repainted into the ScotRail blue stripe livery that all the push-pulls eventually gained. She retained her nameplates at this time, and she was the only one of the 16, later 17 push-pull 47/7s for ScotRail that did not carry a Scottish associated name. Some people will immediately go out and tell me, what about 47704 Dunedin? Yes, I accept Dunedin is a city in New Zealand where the Otago Stadium is, where the former Carisbrook Rugby Union ground was. But Dunedin is also an anglicised Gaelic version of Edinburgh, so it was a Scottish linked name. But this one was the only one not to carry a Scottish linked name. She was based at Haymarket for most of her life, and then in 1988, as Haymarket was preparing to take on only sprinters, she was transferred to Eastfield but remained on the push-pull network. The introduction of Class 158 Express sprinters onto the ScotRail Express services resulted in this machine no longer doing those services, and for a little short period she remained in the ownership of ScotRail, although she was borrowed by Intercity for a couple of cross-country workings. Reading in Motor Power Monthly in 1990, she actually went and took an Edinburgh to Poole train one day, returning the next day. In January 1991, she was called into Doncaster Works for overhaul and repaint for her new owners, and that, as you can see here, is the parcels sector. She was then seen on parcels work and also on intercity work occasionally. But interestingly enough, footage of her hauling intercity train, hauling parcels trains, is very rare. I've only ever found 2 clips of that and only half a dozen photos. And I haven't seen a 47/7 numbered 47712 in parcels livery hauling a parcels train in 00 gauge yet. But we'll put that right soon. The Network South East flashes denote that she was on loan to Network South East for a couple of years, from 91 until Class 159 units took over the Waterloo to Exeter service in summer of 1993, and by this time she was returned to the parcels sector. She never ever gained RES livery, and she went through a couple of other liveries and lost her nameplate at one point for other names. There was also a proposed naming, but thankfully that was cancelled. Later preserved, she was actually taken into ownership, I believe it's LSL, Locomotive Services Limited, and she has been fitted with Blue Star multiple working equipment now, and that allows her to work with a DBSO at the rear of a push-pull train that has got Blue Star equipped to it as well for its use with direct rail services on Cumbrian local hauled services with a Class 37/4. She was also paired up with a rake of Mark III's painted into ScotRail livery to recall the glory days of the ScotRail Express service, and I must say the efforts that have been put in are a real credit to the railway preservation movement. Now this 47712 here is, I think you can actually tell immediately, it's been a renumbering. Lima produced a 47712 in the early 90s, and I actually had one, but for the third time the traction tyres have come off, and I've decide I've had enough with it. So that'll get sold on eBay as an on-runner, and this is a replacement, and it has no traction tyres on it because it's a Bachmann model, so it's much better tooling. She also has a much better motor as well, and rather than having to be hardwired for DCC, he's already got the space for DCC. And in fact, I bought this off eBay as 47474, so Roland Hill, with the decoder included in it. Now, it didn't come to Clydebridge directly, it went to Craig at New Durham Junction, who has renumbered it to 47712. The numbers, the NAC flash and her nameplate are Realtek transfers. Out of sight on the other side are the pipes for the push-pull system, the air pipes, and you can see on here the jumper cables. One of them is actually a little bit lower down than the others, but you know, I can live with that. The push-pull kit actually comes from West Hill Wagon Works, and I'll put the link to the link in the description below to that. Another advantage of the Bachmann one over the Lima one is we obviously have working lights. Now the model, actually the donor model, was bought actually weathered, but Craig's gave it a little touch up of weathering as well, and I accept it might not be perfect, but I can tell you right now it's a bloody sight better than the Lima one that I have. Even the buffers have all been painted. So if you take out the old 47712, this is effectively class 47 number 36 on Clydebridge station, and you'll see class 47 number 37 at the end of the video. Now, you watch this, Bachmann will then suddenly come out and announce they'll have a 47712 in their product ranges for the future. And I bet you they do it. They're doing an announcement in February as I film this, and I bet you they're going to announce one of these. See if they do, I'll buy up. If they do, I'll be absolutely overjoyed for anybody that wants a 47712 in parcels. I am pretty certain they'll do that. See if they don't, I will promise to buy a 158 for the layout. You heard my word here. As I already mentioned to you, I haven't seen any footage of a 00 gauge 47712 in parcel sector livery hauling a parcels train. Let's put that right now. Here's a before and after shot for you to show you the conversion work that took place. Now, that's 47474, which you're familiar with. I've had that a few years on the layout. And this is what the 47474 that I bought recently has actually became. And you can immediately see that the weathering and obviously the renumbering and the push-pull jumper cables. Now, the only thing to mention to you about the push-pull cables, as I've already said, is one of them is actually slightly, on the other side, is slightly lower than the other. And also, they're having to sit in closer to the head box, the head code box area, because if they weren't, they'd be over the warning flashes. Also notice that on this 47474, don't know how well the camera can pick it up, the buffers are actually black, whereas I've got them silver with black blobs to make it look like grease on them. But so it's suggesting that either this is actually, that 47712 has already been put on a different chassis before I bought it. I don't know, but whatever, I'm very pleased to say that I've now got 47712 back operational on the layout. And as I say, towards the end, we'll let you see number 37, class 47. I purchased this recently from Scooney Hobbies at Kirkcaldy, and it's a tidy track painter pen, rusty rail. And I'll just show you the nib. Here we go. Okay. And it does exactly as it says on the tin. It makes rusty rails. So what you do with it is when you first get these, the nib will be white, and you need to shake the pen with the cap on. You need to shake the pen for a couple of minutes, and then with the nib still white, you would dab down on an old piece of paper or old piece of card until the colour starts to come through onto the nib, and then that's you ready to go. These are not suitable for children under 14 years of age, by the way. I'll move the camera up and let you see what the effect has been like on one of the roads in the depot, and you can actually just see that there. And it provides that, makes it look rusty. The harder you press or the more times you use the pen on a section, the rustier it's going to look. Now over here, you can just see there that I've used it on the end there of platform 1. I've cleared this part here because I'm going to do these two platform roads here. Now, one interesting tip I'll give you is when you're using a rusty rail pen, have the power switched off, okay? I've not found it, I'm not aware of any problems with actually using it with the power switched on, but my own advice is keep the power off when you're using a rusty rail pen. I'm going to get it to just beyond the buffers, and what I've done is I've put 47715 here as a good marker, so I've got an idea of where I want to put the pen. And I'm doing these now because in the very near future I'll be ballasting this small part here to get started. So I'll see you on the other side in just a moment. The camera doesn't pick it up very clearly, but that's it on. What I've done was I just went along with the pen like a normal artist brush. Just brushing along, but for some of the harder to reach parts, I dabbed the pen. Now, what that's actually resulted in here is that it's made the chairs that the rails sit on, which are on the sleepers, actually get rusted too. So you can actually dab as well as brush with the pen. Although it's a rusty rail pen, you don't have to actually use it just for rusty rails, because as I've already mentioned, I've used it for the drain covers that I'm installing. And another thing you can use it for, if you're really wanting to do so, and I'll just take the camera over here, rusty ladders, rusty lamp posts. And although I've not got it on the any on the layout, you could even have rusty bikes, rusty fence. So as I say, it's a rusty rail colour, but it doesn't mean that you have to use it as making rusty rails. It's your own imagination, basically, folks. This here, folks, is the new style light that's going to go above the advertising hoardings. And these are the old style lights that are coming off. You can actually see what the problem is. Yeah, that's apparent on that one. How I make them is, this piece comes off, which is the light piece, and the length of that is used to measure the length of the back piece. And if I just put the camera in there, you'll see it. And then two side pieces go on, they'll be all painted black, and then they get stuck on to each other. Once that's done and the glue has dried, they get stuck on here to the retaining wall, and we hope that they stay on. Now there it's a little bit loose, but that is actually partly caused by the previous light that was on there, but that's actually a lot more stronger. I just used the scale model scenery modelling card to do this with. So all these will eventually be replaced. One complication I've got to make sure that I don't muck up is the length of the cable here, the dummy cable for the electrical wiring. Remember, these are dummy lights. This one will require some alteration to the cable, so I can actually get it to fit in there, because it's a different style to the other ones that you see there. But that's what that's all about. It's a very simple job, and I'm going to go ahead off camera and make these, and then once I've got a couple made, I'll let you see. Now the other thing to point out is these won't get another coat of white paint. They'll be left as they are, but these pieces get some black artist paint. They'll get 2 or 3 coats of that, and then they get stuck up once they're stuck together once the paint has dried, and then they'll get stuck onto the retaining wall. And there we have the new billboard lights up. A couple of them proved to be rather troublesome. This one in particular here above the Coca-Cola billboard was very troublesome. I had to actually use rail cutters to cut the wires away, and I had to put a bit of an additional brickwork up on the top because the previous one had got damaged inevitably when taking it off. What had been the problem then that was causing it all? Well, if I show you this one, these were the bits stuck onto the wall, and there was a lot more weight there, so it was actually too heavy on one side. So these look a lot more robust, and that is until somebody decides to actually come out and make an off-the-shelf version of those. But I've managed to keep the wiring intact elsewhere, dummy wiring of course, and as you can see, we've now got billboards that are lit up again. I might well be able to do an even better job in the future, I don't know. At the start of this month's update, I had said one of the things we would do was put a billboard on here. I should remember the commentator's golden rule, beware predictions, because it's not going to happen. The reason is, I'm going to actually do it as a combined job with this, putting some road surface on here at some point in the future, and when I've got both those done, only then can I put this up. So it's no point me just putting the billboard up on the bus garage now and then having to lean over like that to put a piece of modelling card in and risk damaging that. Not right, so that's why we won't be doing that this month. We'll do that in another video, and I'm thinking possibly next month, he says. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the second Class 47 Royal locomotive that's arrived at Clydebridge station. And what we have here is 47541, the Queen Mother, carrying the red stripe ScotRail livery. It's a Bachmann example bought on eBay, but you'll hear more about that next month as part of the March update. Now, bewaring predictions, as I said there a couple of minutes ago, what I can tell you I'm going to be trying to do for the during the March update is actually clearing some of the vegetation in that round by the depot. That's going to be necessary for the track work that's got to get done and has been discussed before to allow a much better layout for platforms 5 and 6. And so that's what I'll be doing in the March update, clearing all that vegetation away, and I'll also definitely be building the billboard and getting that road surface fixed. Ryan Donaldson will also be here with a preview of Model Rail Scotland, which I will actually be attending on the Saturday towards the end of March. But there'll be full details on Model Rail Scotland in the update in March. Now, just before we finish off, we've got some shout outs to do, of course, as usual. And the first one we'll go to is Walton-on-Trent, a channel I've mentioned before. He's set on the West Coast Main Line in the era just after mine. So he's 1991 to 1995. era that he's set in. Although he does actually have 3 locomotives on the layout that I've got here. He's got 47715 Haymarket in NSC, 47706 in weather-beaten ScotRail livery, and 47474 carrying parcel sector red livery. So check out Walton-on-Trent there. Rich does a very good job with this series called Flange Squeal. Another layout worth mentioning, and again it's also based on the West Coast Main Line, but this time it's an N gauge layout, is Oxley Central N gauge, and again you'll find that on YouTube as well. Oxley Central N gauge, and it gives an idea of Wolverhampton, where Rich at Walton-on-Trent originally comes from. Rich's layout is based upon Stafford for the track layout, Birmingham New Street for the buildings. Oxley Central N gauge is based upon Oxley Depot near Wolverhampton, home of the famous push-pull sets on the Euston, Birmingham, Wolverhampton trains. So if you check out Oxley Central N gauge, and in addition to that, if you also give a check out to, and is not posted much recently, but it's West Blythe MPD, set in the BR Blue era in the northeast of England. West Blythe MPD. So if you could check him out, please. And then we've got 2 more, well 3 more in fact, people to go and say hello to and ask you to check him out. And you'll find these in fact not here on YouTube but on Instagram. And actually bands we're going for this time, a little bit of a theme. The first one is The Harbours. So if you could give them a check out, please. The Harbours. And then if you could also give a check out to a band who come from a famous railway town of Colville. You might remember in the 80s, the rail freight depot there in Mantle Lane, which had its own annual open day, Colville. And I'm talking about the Robbery Band. So if you look at the Robbery, I believe it's the Robbery _band. I'll just check that out for you then. I just want to make sure I've got this right. You watch this, I probably won't have. Yep, the Robbery _band. So if you go and check them out, please. And if you're into your country music, Preston D. Barnes, you'll actually find him on YouTube as well as Instagram and Facebook. Preston D. Barnes, a very good mate of mine. And lastly, a band from Plymouth, The Revival. So if you check them out, The Revival. They're a 5-piece, all teenagers, 2 guitarists, a bass guitarist, a keyboard player and a drummer. Go and check them out. It's a fabulous story about how they've got to and where they've got to so far. So that's it. Just a quick mention, by the way, keep an eye on this YouTube channel for a video that will be coming out on the 1st of March called Project 851. I wonder if any of you can work out what it is. Project 851. And that's for the 1st of March. Anyway, that's all we've got for the February 2026 update here at Clydebridge Station, and I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen. I look forward to your company next time. In the meantime, please, whatever you're doing, do take care of yourselves, won't you, and enjoy your lates, and we'll see you soon. Cheerio!